This is the Above Average Podcast, and you are listening because you want an above average life.
Hello guys, so welcome to this first episode. We're going to see how well this recording goes. No one might actually hear this one, but we're going to do it anyway. So my guest today is Mr. Luke John Harrison. So if you know my social media, you'll know that Luke appears quite frequently on it. Me and Luke both work together. He's a coach, an author, a speaker, and an all-around great guy. So Luke, welcome to the podcast, mate.
I'm excited, mate.
You're excited. What particularly excites you about being here?
Talking to you, mate. Having the presence of one great fellow to another.
Fantastic. So there's one thing I want to speak to you about as well. So I found out recently that Luke has every year of knowing Luke comes with more surprises. So every year of knowing you, I find out something new. So I found out recently that you did some movies back in the day. So we're talking about being an extras.
Now, what movies are we talking about? Because there's been a few different movies.
So let's not talk about anything that is, let's not say you did like adult movies, like James Dean or something.
Of course not.
Yes, Johnsons. So tell me how did you manage to get into, how do you be an extra in a movie? How does that work?
So there was two movies, which I believe are on IMDb now as genuinely released titles. Obviously low budget Z movies, but that's still there. It was down to one was called Zombie Women of Satan 2, by the way, which again I did the scene and I don't even think it made it in the final cut, but I was the executioner in that scene.
Right.
Went on a weekend with Pete from Big Brother, the guy with the Tourette's.
Yeah,
he was in it.
Yeah. All right.
And Mike Fielding, Noel Fielding from the Mighty Boosh's brother as well. So it was like and that was from a director called Warren Speed, who does a lot of theatrics and boylesque and stuff like that. He did that. We did also A Last Cabin in the Woods of Death was another one. I don't even think I've seen that actually. I had to do a sex scene in that.
Is it awkward to do a sex scene? Because
kind of, yeah, but I mean it was kind of like tongue in cheek, as if I was like just playing an arrogant prick who got killed. And I was just like funning it up, so it was quite hilarious. Like, yeah, you bitch, take it, motherfucker. so, from what I can remember, anyway, it was so long ago.
How you do it anyway?
All the time, mate, all the time. But in order to get into that, it's again who you know. I think I was just hanging around the circles because years ago I started out being a little bit of a model, and not professionally full time or anything. It was just kind of a hobby. Then you get to know certain people. I started doing the boylesque, which is the male performance of burlesque. So I started to be quite creative with them. And again, mixing those circles, you get to know some quite creative people. Yeah. And one of them just happened to be doing a movie and asked if I wanted to be an extra. I was like, yeah, let's do it.
So were you nervous going into that sort of thing?
Yeah, I mean, it's new. But I think I picked up this personality from my dad. Like we very much take a lot of what parents' traits on as we grow up. My dad was always very curious.
Yeah.
Dad was always very adventurous. He was always like open-minded about stuff all the time. So he wouldn't usually see something and say, that's shit, what's the point in that? He was very like what most people do. I was quite fortunate, and he was like, pay a bit more attention, son. Like, keep an open mind. Like, try it. You never know. You might enjoy it. Like, try. Be a bit more optimistic, open-minded. Like, that's people's problems these days, is they're too closed-minded. Yeah. If something sounds the least bit weird, strange, scary, or different, it's like, oh no, I'm going to stay safe and certain. But too much certainty in life creates a life of boredom, which, as we know, is the opposite of happiness.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah.
Well, that's the next thing I wanted to watch. So obviously, you mentioned that you got a lot of the mindset from your dad.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people don't have that sort of influence, right? A lot of people's parents, especially in British culture, like I can't speak for any other culture because I don't know very much about that, but obviously we get a lot from our parents. So what do you think it is about like breaking out of that, because I'm like a mix of my parents.
Yeah.
My mom's very much, she's up for anything. She'll go and do, she'll travel anywhere. If someone invites her to an event, she's very much for it, but she's also suffers with a lot of like anxiety, worry, self-doubt. My dad's very laid back. He's very chill. It wouldn't bother him if he didn't go anywhere in the world. He would be happy just going to Spain every year, and that would be it, right? So I've got a nice little gentle mix of the two. But for a lot of people, they don't have that sort of role model. So if someone was in that situation where they don't have that sort of that role model around, and they need to get out of their current situation, they've got a terrible mindset, they don't have opportunities, where does someone like that start?
Well, that's a great question, and it's all down to where you put your attention, where you put your focus, and what the environment is like that you're creating. Do you live in a hostile environment, or do you live in a friendly environment? And I mean that both internally and externally. Now, obviously, we can't choose our family, but we can choose our friends. We can choose who we hang around with. We can choose how much time we spend with certain people. So sometimes it's a matter of getting around different circles, seeking those people out. Now, with the internet, this is a great thing because you can seek a lot of different communities out and Facebook groups and things like that. But for me, I had to get out from the negative mindset of being full-time employed in a job I hated and detested. An attitude and lifestyle that I detested with drink, drugs, overthinking, anxiety. And I wasn't really around people at the time I wanted to change that would help me get through that and push towards changing my identity. So I needed to start reading different books. In fact, I needed to actually, I'll rephrase that, I need to start fucking reading.
It's incredible how many people don't read books.
I didn't even read a book properly until I was fucking 26.
Wow.
So prior to that, even in school, I wouldn't read because, well, I would read comic books or maybe a graphic novel. The only book I actually remember reading in school was the screenplay to Pulp Fiction. We were asked in like GCSE, year 10 or 11, to bring a book in to read, and we had to read a book and then write something and talk about the book. Mine was the screenplay to Pulp Fiction, a film that I really liked as a kid. But I'd already seen the film. It was just reading the screenplay, like the lines of the characters, and I would just play it out in my head.
Yeah.
That was the first book that I actually remember reading by myself, on my own, front to back, which is mad. Like, it's not really an eye-opening book. It's just a screenplay of a movie. But it was the first thing that I remember. And then when you get into a job, a lot of the time, it doesn't require you to read and educate yourself because you're shown what to do, you do it to the best of your ability, and you do it on repeat. And therefore comes competence. And what precedes competence is confidence. So we get confident, we get certain, we get assured, we get a paycheck, and then we just repeat the same behaviors. We already are creatures of habit.
Yeah.
So what that means is if there's no encouragement, if there's no need to grow through study, reading, etc., why would you do it?
Yeah.
You wouldn't. You would just choose the easy option. You choose entertainment over education every time. This is why people spend hundreds and thousands of pounds every year on entertainment, and very little on education. Their budget for education is zilch compared to their budget for entertainment.
Do you think it triggers people from school? Like, so obviously I used to, like, when I finished college, I finished college with a piece of paper that I didn't want to do anything with.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I didn't want to study anymore. And I stayed that way for like 2 or 3 years or something after college of just not wanting to read anything, to study, because it triggered me from school because I was like forced to do it for so long. I'm like, I don't want to read books anymore. I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
And I think that's most people's problem is they're just like, they're still in this mentality of school. It's like, if there's no teacher, there's no homework, why am I going to study? But one of the best quotes, I might be butchering this quote, I'm not sure, but it was like, education will make you a living, self-education will make you a fortune. Have you heard that one before?
Yeah.
Is that something that you've sort of embodied through your life?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. What is it? Is it education will make you a living? Self-education will make you a fortune?
I think
can't
so.
remember.
I could be totally
That's a Jim Rohn quote, I'm sure. It's
possibly.
a Jim Rohn quote. But and this is not just make you a fortune in terms of monetary value. Yes, it'll massively help studying wealth and money and people and how we give and receive and all that stuff. But also a fortune in emotions. It will save you a fortune in negative emotions if you learn how to handle turbulent times better through educating yourself. Yeah. It will allow you to deal with things easier. So back to your initial question, which is how do somebody who hasn't had a necessarily optimistic upbringing or maybe a role model as a parent, how do they get out of the mindset of maybe depression, anxiety, negativity, frustration, a lot of fear, doubt, is that we whatever we focus on, we find. Wherever our focus goes, our energy flows, which is a very common quote, but it's very true. So a lot of the time we're just focusing on the wrong things. What could go wrong? How shit we have been? What terrible things happened in the past? What catastrophe might occur as a result of me taking this stupid risk? We never are pushed into doing things outside of our comfort zone. Yeah. So the books that we read, the things that we watch on YouTube, on TV, whatever, the people that we follow on Instagram, on socials,
there it is, yeah.
Those we don't even realize have such an impact on our physical and mental well-being that we're paying so much attention to drama much more than being on a mission.
100%.
We over-dramatize everything, and guess what drama creates? Certainty because we know we're going to get a reaction. It creates significance because you're going to get somebody agreeing with you. And it also gives you connection as well, because people will comment on your stuff, people will agree with you, etc. So it's meeting 3 human needs. And if something meets 3 human needs, it's almost a certainty that you're going to go for it.
Yeah.
So
100%.
people soak up drama and seek it out if they don't have a mission or something that is driving them in life, because it hits 3 human needs straight off. So it's easier to get roped up in drama than it is to not pour fuel on a fire and say, oh no, I'm going to go on my own path, but it's lonely there. And it can be lonely. And when you're trying to better yourself and improve your self-development, etc., people know this. Like, most of their mates are not into it. Most of their family are not into it. There's millions of people in the world into it, but it's still a niche.
Yeah.
It's still a niche because it's normal to be negative.
Yeah, misery loves miserable company. And I think the good point that you said about social media, about who you follow and what you watch and stuff like that. So, have you ever heard of the part of the brain called the RAS, which is the reticular activating system?
Yep.
So that basically, for anyone that doesn't know what that is, it's like it is your focus. It is exactly whatever you feed it is what you will notice more of. It's like if someone says, go and tell me when you see a red car, you're more likely to look for red cars, right? But you're going to ignore everything else around it because you're focusing on red cars. That's a very basic, idea of it. But it also works the same way as the Instagram algorithm, right? So the Instagram algorithm will show you whatever you most interact with or hover over the most. So you'll notice on the For You page, like yours is probably, a lot of gym stuff. I mean, obviously, we'll get to your social media. We'll get to your social media as well. Luke's done something really good with his social media at the minute. But basically, Instagram shows you what you view the most. But it's the same with your brain. So if you're constantly taking in, drama, people's bullshit, opinions, reality TV, the Kardashians. Like, I quite enjoy the Kardashians, but, they're not exactly healthy for the brain. But, like, if you're taking in all this crap, you're constantly around people who don't talk about success, who don't talk about self-development, who don't talk about money, who don't talk about, their own mindset. If you're not around those sorts of people and you're not taking in that sort of content, then your RAS is going to be like, well, I'm going to look for the stuff that, you're feeding me, which is drama, bullshit, people's opinions. Like, growing up for you, as my next question, growing up for you, what was it like what was your sort of childhood around, like, your friends and stuff like that? Were your friends kind of into, doing cool things? Were they into the same things as you? Or did you kind of have to distance yourself from those people eventually?
When we talk about childhood, we talk about early childhood. That was really good. I was very fortunate to have a few people who were really fun to hang around, very much got me. I'm still in touch with them today, in these days, which is great. There was, when I was teenage years, I met some other people who were keen on drugs and drinking, and obviously fell into those cycles. And up to the age of like early 20s, was definitely hanging around with a lot of the wrong crew. Maybe up to mid 20s, probably, I would say. But there was, and thankfully I found a few people with my childhood, probably I could list on one hand, who were positive influences. I wouldn't necessarily say they have the same mindset as me today in terms of development and being self-employed, etc. But they're still my good friends to this day, very good friends. But I did meet a lot of people along the way who were bad influences, who I went out with several times. I remember one guy I used to take occasional ecstasy pills with, and one time I had 11 and he had over 20.
Fuck.
He was an absolute monster. I remember at the end of the morning, it was because we took them overnight in my bedroom. And on the morning he had like 5 left and he just took them all in one go, and I couldn't believe it. And then he got in a taxi and went home. Just that.
Is this dude still alive?
I think so. Yeah, like that kind of behavior is just like unbelievable. But obviously, when you're hanging around people who do that regularly, which at the time he did, many years ago now, I was influenced by him. He was the one who got the drugs. He was the one who talked about them. We were the one who did it together on occasion, So there's, just as an example, like those are the kinds of people that I think, well, maybe I need to start distancing myself a little bit from these people, and not necessarily going out and doing the things that they do regularly, and maybe it's time I started to get involved with some new people, or just, find my own path kind of thing.
Yeah, 100%. So going back to your social media, so we said that Luke's done something very interesting with his social media recently. And going on the topic of what you follow, what you watch and what you read, and getting out of those social circles of negative influences, what have you done to your social media
So
specifically your Instagram.
Yeah. So Instagram, I went from like nearly 400 following people who I was following, things that I was following, hashtags, stuff like that, down to just one.
Mm-hmm.
So
And who is that one?
the one is a disabled cat called Phineas, and he's a ginger tomcat, and he's very wobbly. He's like if you imagine someone with cerebral palsy, he has the equivalent as a cat. So he's very wobbly. It just melts my heart every time I see him. He's amazing. Obviously I've got 3 cats myself.
Yeah.
Thankfully they're all in good health. But this cat's got like nearly fucking 750,000 followers.
Wow.
It's mad. He's such a popular cat, but its owner loves him, and it's just a joy to watch.
Yeah.
But that's the only one that I couldn't let go of. I even let go of me best mates. I let go of me missus. I let her go then, but I'll keep this one disabled cat.
And me.
Yeah, and you,
and me.
I unfollowed everyone because it was just a distraction tool. Like, and most people will be able to like agree with this. When you start scrolling, you just I've got 5 minutes. I'll just have a little scroll. Fucking 25 minutes later, 35 minutes later, 45 minutes. You're still fucking watching reels, and it leaves from one thing to the next. You're watching something absolutely fucking hilarious of some dude falling over and doing a hilarious epic fail. Then the next minute you're on to like some celebrity on Jimmy Fallon who he didn't realize was on talking about this new thing, and then the next minute you're watching this girl do something really cheeky and naughty, and you're like, oh my god, she's fit. And then you're on to the next, and then there's this cat with doing something which is absolutely hilarious, and then you're like, what the fuck? I've just fucking lost an hour of my day. And this happens to almost everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And again, you just talk about the algorithm. Because I'd watched certain things at certain times, it would show me stuff that it believed I would enjoy, and it was right.
Yeah.
It's usually fucking right. So it will get me stimulated. It will create the dopamine fix, the feel-good chemicals, as soon as I open that phone. So now, I do still open Instagram, but 9 times out of 10, it's just the orange cat doing the same thing. So I'm like, oh, I've seen that, and I'll click off.
Yeah.
And I'll save so much more time and mental energy. And actually, the past couple of weeks that I've done it, as you know, we've been in the office, we've been pretty productive, so we've got quite a lot done. And it does help having that less distraction.
Yeah.
So, and I don't employ everybody does this. It depends on your lifestyle. I mean, we've got quite a fast-paced lifestyle. Like, there's a lot of projects and things to be focused on, and things can get, as we know, behind quite quickly. So to be able to just, again, whatever we focus on, we find. And I'd like to focus on creating more than consuming. And I think that's a lot of people's problem is if I can create a lot of content or something of value to people, to the marketplace, much more than just consuming loads of fun, interesting content, then I can be of much more value and I can feel like I'm giving back and fulfilling my purpose a little bit more.
Yeah. The good thing that you said there, obviously, giving value and stuff like that. So in terms of, because obviously we know what given value means, right? It's it's content. It's something that people can, get something from, essentially, right? And the more you give, the more you get back. But most people are so focused on like, okay, I need my passion. I need to find out where I'm going. I need to find out what my mission is, and it's all kind of me. But they don't realize if you just did more for other people, that's where you find that stuff. It's kind of like that's like the unwritten rule of it. It's like you do for other people and then you find more for yourself. Is that what got you started in sort of the fitness industry? Or where did the drive come from?
In a way, well, I think the drive for fitness came from, your values always come from your voids, like what you feel you're missing or lacking, I think, whether you've been lacking it previously, currently, or you feel you're going to maybe lack it in the future. So for me, the fitness thing came from a void of confidence, from being bullied consistently in school. So I started lifting weights, I started doing boxing, getting fit, doing CrossFit, etc. because of a void of lack of self-confidence. So I knew if I got my physical body in shape that I would be more confident. So I got into it through that void. But then I knew, again, within my day job, I was a plumber for 8 years and I was miserable. So I had a void of happiness and fulfilling duties in my day-to-day work. So then I thought, what would fulfill me? What would excite me? What would make me passionate? I liked fitness. I liked looking into it. I liked reading the magazines. I liked performing it. I liked talking to people about it. So I was like, ooh, I'm going to follow this. Yeah. So I took the course and I did, got a business mentor, etc., etc. And then one thing led to the other. And now we're here today having this conversation.
Yeah. In short.
In very, very short terms. But ultimately, like, we're all chasing happiness, right? It's just we use several different means to find it. We can use drink, drugs, smoking, gambling, sex, anything. Like, we can use food for example. We're all chasing happiness. So I think it's a matter of finding out along the way what makes you happy. And I don't just mean momentarily happy, because we're coming up to Christmas, right? And it's a great time to elaborate on what happiness is, because the majority of people love Christmas. And it's the little things, isn't it? But Christmas is mostly down to what become happy when we're around people who we like. Who we like. Some family members don't get on with, but ultimately we feel comfortable because we're around people who we like. We're indulging in things that we don't usually indulge in. We'll have less stress because we usually have some time off work or whatnot. So we're in environments where we create happiness. Now, obviously, that's not sustainable all year round, and it makes it special because it's only one time a year.
Yeah.
But ultimately, while we're searching for happiness, if boredom is the opposite of happiness, right? Then we need to find things that light us up. And what you said before is that doing for other people, and I don't mean this in the terms of people pleasing, because a lot of people just say yes even though they don't want to do it. I mean, when you do something for others that you want to do, and you get that gratification, that satisfaction of knowing, oh, I've added value to that person's life, in no matter what way. It could be a compliment, it could be a gift, it could be just an act of service in some way. Then you are going to feel more fulfilled and happy as a result of helping somebody else. Not pleasing somebody else and saying yes when you wanted to say no, or saying no when you wanted to say yes. It's not that. That people-pleasing attitude is just so people don't feel rejection. Mostly, that's why people do it. But then they do that at the expense of their own health and energy. Well, I'll just give, and I'll forget about myself. I don't care. Then that doesn't lead to self-esteem.
Yeah.
You create resentment. You create bitterness through that that kind of action.
Yeah.
So, but when you give from a place of love, and you give from a place of not needing anything in return, but feeling good about giving, then that will help bring out your passion in whatever way that is. And I hope I've explained that right.
Yeah. No, it's funny because obviously when I started doing YouTube videos about 5 or 6 years ago now, like when I started it was because I saw the lifestyle that other people who made videos, who were successful YouTubers, I wanted that lifestyle. And so when I first started making videos, it was, okay, what's going to look cool on camera? What can I say that sounds cool? That's going to be a good sound bite. And I wasn't overly obsessed with what value I was given, right? It was more like, let's throw some stuff out there and I want to look cool. And then it was a short space of time, right? Because I literally threw myself into the self-development thing. So it was a short space of time where eventually it was like, okay, well, people aren't responding to these videos very well because I'm kind of shouting at people what they should be doing. And then I had to take a step back and look at what people needed to hear, what were people asking for, what kind of advice did people actually, need in their lives. So I was looking at things like mental health, how to handle depression, how to do this properly, like what's the best way to handle this situation, like conflict, anger, things people handled in, anxiety, things people handled in general life. So once that's changed to that, you notice a massive shift in who comes towards you. It's kind of creepy. Like, I don't like to reference The Secret. Do you know The Secret? So I'm not a massive fan of The Secret. I think it's, massively overplayed in terms of what people think they're capable of. Like, everyone's like, oh, believe in The Secret, you can manifest whatever the fuck you want. And it's like, no, that's not how it works, right? Like, the more value you give out, more people are going to be attracted to you. It's like, it's just a numbers game, really. For at least the way I see it is, the more you're going to give out there, the more people know about you, the more things are going to come your way, especially if you're doing the right thing. You could look at someone controversial and be like, well, they're not given that much value, but people are still sort of following them and looking up to them and stuff. But in terms of moving forward for your sort of the influence and the value you give out, you do live videos every day.
I don't do them every day now, but I used to. But I do. I guess I would rephrase that as I do some sort of content every day.
So every day.
Now,
so it's either a reel, it's a written post.
Yeah, reel, written post, video. Something of value every day. So it's something new every day.
Yeah. So tell me about how people have responded to you over the years. Like, what was the? Actually, no, I'm curious. What was the initial response to you when you started these? Because there was a point where you hadn't done content before. And I don't think I've ever spoke to you about before you did content, right? Because I just know the whole time I've known you, you've done content every day. So when you first started putting out content, what was the initial response to it?
I think it was varied. Obviously, you don't get very much at the start. I started with doing a video challenge where I did 1,000 live videos in a row, day by day, and I missed like 2 days when my cat died. It might have even just been a day, to be fair.
Was that the Daily Boom, or was it
Yeah,
before
so the
that?
Daily Boom when that started. So that was 1,000 live Facebook videos in one go. So that was the majority of me content, just turning on and talking, chatting shit. And sometimes nobody watched them. Sometimes it was just like a fucking tumbleweed, and you just gotta talk away and just talk about what you know and educate people and then try and entertain people in some way. And then sometimes you'd say something that triggered people. You've upset me. You'd get, you don't know what you're talking about, or what a prick.
Yeah.
But then you'd also get people saying, you've really helped me today. I really need to hear this. Thank you. And then you get somebody saying a message saying, just want to say that it really resonated with your post this morning. You've made me day. I was really thinking. And then you get some messages through which say, I was considering taking my own life last week, but then I watched one of your videos. I just want to say thanks.
Wow.
And then it's like, fucking hell. And then, but this person would never comment, or you just get that randomly private message, however long later, and think, holy shit, like it is making a difference. But the problem is our ego thinks, oh, it's not working because nobody's liking it, nobody's commenting, nobody's watching it.
100%.
But people are always watching. Someone somewhere is always fucking watching. So this is where consistency matters. Like the perception, people will always judge based upon what they see, not what they know. All the time. Like, they'll not delve deep into the facts. They'll just see one thing and go, he's a fucking prick. He's made me feel this way. When actually you made you feel that way. We choose our own emotions and feelings. However...
you choose to get triggered.
Exactly. And, if we're offended, it's down to our ego. That's the ultimate truth. But that's okay, and I understand it. But if we take a step back and look and look deeper, like, it's not always about what we see. It's very rarely do we judge based on what we actually know to be factually true. We judge based on what we see, not what we know. But we have to understand that as content creators and as people who want to move forward in life. If we're putting stuff out there because we want to ultimately get something back in return at the end of it, whether that be weeks, months, years later, we have to be open to scrutiny. We have to be open to people's opinions. And that's why most people won't start businesses, won't start putting themselves out there.
Absolutely,
because of the fear of judgment, rejection, and combined, that's quite hard to deal with. So in terms of your initial how it was at the start, it was mixed. Sometimes there was nothing. Sometimes it was negative. Sometimes it was positive. And it always will be that way. There's an equal balance. You'll get loads of shit one day, and then you'll get some nice comments the other day. You just got to bear in mind that if you get 100 comments that are positive and one comment that's negative, that negative comment does not really fucking matter. Yeah. Although that's where our focus will go, because we do not like to be judged. But you're already being judged every day, everywhere. Yeah. Somewhere, someone is always fucking watching.
Is there a comment that you've had over the years that's specifically stuck with you? Or is it just, do they all kind of blur into one? Because sometimes you remember things that you're like, fuck, I remember when that person said this or that. Is there any that particularly stand out to you, like in your memory banks?
What was the one that I'm coming to mind? Was it something like not many are ready for Luke John Harrison or something like that? It was like a compliment to say that I'm like really the real deal, but you have to be ready for us kind of thing. I can't remember what
that's
that was.
good.
Can't remember what that was now. It was a testimonial from an old client. That kind of sticks in my mind. So one recently, Luke owns the room in a good way, and like has a lot of power and authority and has a massive positive influence when he's coaching people. That was another one. That was a Google review that was left recently for the tribe. There's been quite a lot over the years because I've been doing it nearly 10 years now, mate. It's like, if I went back and looked, there'd be quite a few.
Here's what's interesting about when I asked that question. So I said, is there any particular comments that stand out to you, right? Most people would, listening to this, were waiting for you to say, someone said you were a piece of shit.
Oh, yeah.
But you instantly were like, well, some guy said people are not ready for me, and like in a good way, people said, like you just instantly went for the positive stuff.
Yeah.
You didn't tell me the negative, you went straight for the positive. So that mindset right there is a powerful shift, but not one that many people have. Mm-hmm. So can you talk about your sort of current mindset towards other people's opinions?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So the reason why I did that is because I'm skilled in it. And what I mean by that is I am confident in my ability to change my attitude to an optimistic one over a pessimistic one. The brain's naturally wired to be pessimistic. Mm-hmm. To rewire that, like in terms of thoughts, because everything comes from thought, right? Thought into feeling, into action, etc. So we have a thought, and apparently neuroscientists have said we have around 60,000 thoughts a day.
Yeah.
And around 80% of them are negative. And today, around 90% of those thoughts are exactly the same as yesterday. So given the law of averages, that's what, over 50,000 negative thoughts a day. That's mad, right? But with time and repetition, you can change that. So what I've done every single day for the past 10 years is sit with a cup of coffee in the morning and listen to motivational speeches on YouTube. Powerful words. So in terms of accumulative listening, let's say 10 minutes a day for 10 years. I don't even know what that works out as, but it's fucking thousands of hours. Thousands of hours, right? And they say in order to master a skill, it's at least 10,000 hours. I've probably had up to 10,000 hours worth of reading positive books, watching positive videos, listening to motivational speeches, writing positive things, speaking positive words, yes. So in a combination of practicing that, because most people just practice negative things. They just practice feeling like shit over and over and over.
Yeah.
And then point the finger and say, and blame and victimize and say, it's their fault. I would, but it's their fault. But if I do this, what if? And I understand that. I totally get it. Like when you're in fear, that's what we do. But the reason why I'm able to do that in the mindset is because I've spent 10 fucking years doing it. Prior to that, it was exactly the same. Oh, I'm fucking scared. What if I do that? Oh, no, well, I would sort my diet out, but I've been on the piss all weekend. I don't feel like it, you know. Fucking me. You know, well, I would, but if I would give up the coke, but it would mean like giving up this amazing feeling and spending time with people. You know, I would do that. That was me. I was fucking victim before I was 26, 27. In fact, my last line of cocaine was at 30 years old. It was on my 30th birthday. That's nearly 7 years ago. And that, you know, and the drink is now like once a year I'll go and have a couple of Baileys at Christmas or something, or a cocktail or two on holiday. So that's all cut out. Now, and I've reprogrammed my mind through constant repetition of educational resources. And let's be honest, everyone educates himself every day. We scroll, right? We're educating ourselves when we look at our Instagram. We're educating ourselves when we're reading Facebook posts. What the fuck are we doing watching the news still? Now, at this period, the only time I ever watched the news in the last probably 8 years, 10 years, the only time I watched the news was the Boris Johnson announcements for fucking lockdown. Because you needed to know what the fuck was happening. Yeah. And that's the only like official source, apart from I've heard this and I've heard that. So that's the only thing. It's like I'm nothing special. I've just for the past 10 years read and educated myself on the right fucking things. Yes. And anybody can fucking do it. Anybody can fucking do it by just looking at the right things, listening to the right things, reading different books. Stop reading the fucking Daily Star. I was a plumber and I read the fucking Daily Star on a daily basis. 25 pence or whatever it was, 45 pence. There was a set of tits on page 3. It was fucking mint.
That's the reason why.
Sometimes I'd even buy the Daily fucking Sport because the headlines are just fucking amazing. But it's such trash and fucking pathetic. I'd buy Nuts and Zoo every other week so I could look at the tits and read the pathetic fucking articles.
Is this before smartphones?
This is before smartphones were totally in everybody's hand. Like you had the original Nokias and things, but like those are the kinds of things that I would look at and watch. And I'd watch the news on the morning with breakfast, think about who being killed and raped and murdered. It's fucking stupid. And I'm getting fucking riled up here. Yeah. Because this is what I used to do, is read the fucking Daily Star. It's no wonder I was negative. It's no wonder I took cocaine all the time. It's no wonder I got pissed regularly 100%. When I was in that culture and I was in that influence. And I would, guess what? I would have a great laugh at work when I was a plumber. There's some lovely blokes that I still know to this day, and I really appreciate the good times. But the majority of a construction work environment is not based on developing oneself. No. It's just based on talking about getting pissed, complaining about work, going out on the weekend, getting fucked up, and all that bullshit in between, complaining about politics and the news and all that. Like, and it's just an environment where you're not set to grow. So if you want to change your fucking environment.
100%. And I think with that being said, I think we're going to end that there because that's a very powerful note. So for you, Luke, where can people listening, where can they find you and your upcoming projects?
You can find me on Instagram at Luke John Harrison. I won't follow you, but you can follow me.
Unless you're a disabled cat.
I only follow Phineas the cat. For now, until next year anyway. That's my 2022 goal, to keep it in free Instagram until 2023. Luke John Harrison, Facebook. You can go to Supercharged Audio for a free copy of my audiobook, which is 6 hours plus long. Wow. And you can download
that. So if you've enjoyed this like 40 minutes of Luke John Harrison's voice, you can now listen to 6 hours.
Yes, if you can cope with that long. On Instagram, socials, and if you want to send me a private email, luke@superchargedbooks.com.
Fantastic. Luke, thank you very much for being on the show. I can't wait to have you on next time. I've got loads more questions for you. And I can't wait to hear your answers to them. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone. so much for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Pleasure. Bye bye.